Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. Joining me right now is Alex and Kamal, the guys from View from the Hammy end. They are on to share their views of this unfortunate 2-1 loss for Fulham. And along with myself and Kamal's brother Suhail in Canada, we're going to share our thoughts on this. So we've got different points of view. Unfortunately, we're still talking about a loss, and we'll be going through this probably for the next 45 minutes to an hour. And if you're watching live, feel free to share your thoughts on the match as well. I just did a show with Tony Gold a couple of hours ago. I'm right back at it. Let's look at this as a giant therapy session. So let's get going on this. And I want to mention that the podcast version is exclusive on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. If you want to watch it, you can watch it in different locations, but the podcast version will be exclusive on Patreon. Okay, let's get to it. Let's start with opening thoughts. Then we'll talk about our thoughts before the match. I'll go to you, Alex, first. I'll give you the first shot at this. What are your thoughts about this unfortunate 2-1 loss at Craven Cottage? You were there.
Yeah, my initial thoughts are, totally game of two halves. We really, really didn't show up in the second half. It's hard to understand. Because we'd done the groundwork, we'd done the hard work, we got our noses in front. We started that first half on fire, flying into tackles, and the second half we just started limply and we continued limply the whole time. It's hard to explain or understand how that second half went the way it did. Very, very, very frustrating.
Well, we're going to talk about possible reasons why we saw that performance in the second half. Kamal, your opening thoughts. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I wasn't doing very well yesterday. I was walking around feeling like a dwarf for most of the day because Alex said to me that we were going to win 2-1. You said to me, Russ, can I say what your prediction was?
Feel free.
3-1. And then Alex managed to worm a prediction out the guy who sits on the fence. And I said 1-0. But at least Alex got the score right. But it was a difficult day, a super difficult day. Can I just say one thing? I saw a couple of four fans in the Riverside afterwards who are now converted Cottage Talk listeners because I told them about what we'll be doing today. They're a very interesting family. They're on one side, mother and daughter, Fulham fans, and father and son are Chelsea fans. And this is a game that really can split communities.
Wow.
A lot of blood on the line here. But both sets of fans were chanting. There's only one team in Fulham around the match.
You could hear that. You could hear that.
Wow, I find that fascinating. And that families are split. I find that very interesting.
Oh, so can I mention their names? It's Lorna.
Go ahead,
Parisa,
please do. Please
and
do.
Paul and Callum. Say hello to them. And Paul and Callum were trying to convert my little boy into supporting the Blues, but I soon put a stop to that.
Well, nice try, but it isn't going to happen. But welcome to the show, and I hope you enjoy what you watched today. So, Hale, over to you, and I want to get your opening thoughts, but I want to ask you one question, and then you can share your thoughts as well. You've already mentioned to me that you were talking about Raul being knackered, and I think a lot of the players unfortunately ran their race in the first half. Could that be a factor in what we saw in the second half?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I mean, I can't disagree with Alex. It was a game of two halves. We were good first half. We were horrific second half. We just sat back. We were inviting problems. But the first half, we weren't, we played well, but Chelsea played well too. It was an even sort of game, and the first half we were very, very threatening on the break. Two ways about it. Chelsea was slightly muted on the break. They weren't doing much when they got to our area, but we were very good on the break. But then the second half, I don't know what happened. I don't know whether it was fatigue or whether the players themselves began. The sub, Jadon Sancho made a big difference.
Huge difference.
He came on and began to really play the thing. But I think Alex is right. Game of two halves. I didn't see that coming in the second half. Us sitting back. It just invited problems, and that's when the goals became inevitable.
And the goals were terrible, guys. And we'll talk about that when we go through the show, because I believe both are preventable, and it goes to a common theme that Tony and I just talked about on the post-match show, is giving up these types of goals is just not good enough. And it's the difference between Fulham and, I'll say, Nottingham Forest and Newcastle United. It's defense. It's a solid defense, not just for 45 minutes, not for 75 minutes, but for 90-plus minutes. And right now, it's not a great defense. It's probably an average defense overall, and I think that's what hurts Fulham in the end. All right, guys, let's talk about what was going through your minds before the match. Kamal, I'll go to you first. I was very confident. I said 3-1, and sounds like you weren't maybe as confident as me, but what were your thoughts before the match as you guys were getting ready for this match?
Well, it's the Fulham hoodoo, because whenever I drive to the Cottage, when I drive to Fulham, I'm always driving past Chelsea fans, and they move en masse. They're like a mob. They were very quiet for the most part of the match yesterday, but I was looking. I kind of listened. I was a typical Fulham fan. I listened to all my friends. I listened to you. I listened to Alex. Everybody was hyper confident. I was reading stuff about Maresca, how unpopular he was. It was a real slaughter of his style of football in The Guardian yesterday, and I was, I was kind of assured that I didn't know if we were going to win because the old Fulham hoodoo strikes, but I was sure that we weren't going to lose. I was certain it's going to be a draw, but the match, the atmosphere was fantastic. It was a full house, but you can bet, because it's in Fulham, you can bet a lot of the supporters, in our stands, a lot of them were sneaky Chelsea fans. Yeah.
Okay. So, Hal, what were your thoughts before the match? And then we'll talk about the starting 11 coming up after that.
They were there for the taking. I mean, they'd been in very poor form coming into this game. I mean, they drew with Ipswich, pretty much a relegated team. They drew with Brentford. I think they'd lost in the Conference League as well just before this. So at home. So I thought this was not the Chelsea that we normally get nervous about. This was one where we could take 3 points from. And I think the first 5 or 6 minutes, wow, I just thought this is going to be a walkover. How stupid am I?
Well, I'm there with you, Sahel, because I bought into it as well. So it didn't turn out for either one of us. Alex, I want to go to you. Let's talk a little bit about that, but I want to get your thoughts on your reaction when you saw the starting 11. And what's interesting here is that I got a text right after it was announced, and the text was from our friend Tony Gold saying, "Where is Emile Smith-Rowe? Where is Muniz?" My first thought, and I'll get yours, when I saw the starting 11, is like, this could really hurt Fulham more with Muniz. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, completely. Massive loss. Obviously, Muniz, he's been really good lately, I think. And I think they share the workload well together, Jimenez and Muniz. Whoever comes on works their socks off and tends to have a good influence on the game. So, massive loss, Muniz, less so Emile Smith-Rowe. Great to see Kenny Tete back in the starting lineup. Obviously, huge bonus there, I think. I was upbeat about seeing Sessegnon starting. I've got to admit, I totally agree with Sahel. Chelsea are very much off form, lacking confidence. But when you look at that starting lineup, you do, Reece James was in there. You do go, wow, that's an impressive team on paper. I mean, 250 million nearly in their two midfielders alone. Neto was incredible at Wolves. He's not been brilliant at Chelsea, but really good starting lineup for Chelsea. So when I saw that starting lineup, I was a little bit less confident, especially with Muniz missing. I do think Muniz's loss, that did prove to be a problem because we brought on Vinicius, which is never the answer. Although it was once when we beat Chelsea 2-1 with Vinicius scoring, but that was a while ago.
Right. And the fact that he hasn't played that much, I think, was an issue. And Suhail, I'll go to you. I want to get your thoughts on the starting 11. I'll say it this way. When I first thought, I said to Tony, and see if you agree with me, it's good enough to beat Chelsea, the starting 11 and the bench. But I did see a hole, and that hole was at backup striker. That was a concern of mine. What did you see when you saw the starting 11?
Same as you. I mean, Muniz was the only one that I thought it was a bit strange that he's not even in the squad. Emil Smith-Rowe's enigma Smith-Rowe at the moment. He's totally sort of gone missing. I mean, believe it or not, if he was in the starting 11, we wouldn't have noticed him yesterday because he's been that anonymous in games. But was it Issa Diop not on the bench either yesterday? Because I was looking for him. If he wasn't on the bench, and the only reason I mentioned that, we'll talk about the second half, I'm sure, in due course, because he would have been a great player to bring on the second half. But I think when I saw the team, I thought, great to see Kenny back, and I thought this team could certainly win this one. It's not
absolutely
a problem. No,
that's the way I was looking at it, even though I had my doubts because of the situation with Muniz more than Smith-Rowe. I'm thinking it's still more than good enough to beat a Chelsea team that you guys are talking about that were not in great form, and if Fulham are at their form, they should win this match. And first half kind of gave me confidence that would be the case, but that ultimately was not the case. What was your thoughts, Kamal, on the starting 11?
Well, I thought it's just about Muniz. I like the gossip, so I've been reading papers today, and there could be a reason he wasn't there. But I suspect that he must have had a real knock. But one of the teams that are after Muniz right now in the summer, Chelsea, they want him. The Sutton 11, I just thought, I'm looking at the amalgam of the last few games and how they played against Liverpool, how they played against United. And what we've got is a composite of the players who performed well in those games. And so I also know that I'm also always thinking that Marco is trying to muscularize the team, make them much physically stronger. And that's the biggest disappointment for me. There's at one point in the game, I turned to Alex, and Pereira was being bullied by Casiero on the corner flag. I mean, he literally pushed him, almost started a fight. I thought, I wonder what he'd do if his mate Muniz was there. He wouldn't be doing that, So, everything seemed perfect except Rodrigo's absence. But ESR, I'm still a believer in ESR. But, I agree with my brother. I agree with the judge. I agree with the professor. He's, he's kind of like a ghost sometimes in matches. So.
Okay, excellent stuff. All right, before we get to talking about the match, Alex, I'm going to go to you. We talked about this before we went live, and I've not heard much talk about this, so we're going to talk about it now. I find this part fascinating. The fact that Chelsea win the toss and decide that they are going to have it go towards the Putney end to start the match, which we were talking about. Other teams probably should be doing that more. What did you make of the decision? And did you think that was actually a factor?
So yeah, I'm always amazed how few teams do that to us, because obviously we want to play attacking the Hammy end in the second half. That's always what we try and do. And you'd have thought 50% of the time the other team would go, no, you're not going to do it. But it seems to happen about once or twice a season. So I really don't understand how that is not a tactic. I don't know whether there's kind of almost a gentleman's agreement sometimes and other teams want to do the same. I've got no idea how it works. But statistically, you'd have thought half the time we're getting turned around, not allowed to do that. Did it have an impact? I don't know. You mentioned the wind. To be honest, I didn't notice any wind in the ground. So nothing on that front that I noticed. Maybe the players notice it a bit more. They're a bit more exposed than we are in the stand. But psychologically, maybe a little bit. But I think if you look at the way the game played, the way it played out, it's hard to put it down to the changing of the ends. It was like
that's true. That's true, because Fulham were very good in the first half. That's true.
Exactly. We were good in the first half. I mean, maybe the fact that we are used to attacking the Hammersmith end in the second half might explain why we were absolutely useless in the second half. I don't know. But I don't think we can blame it on it. But it is interesting. It's an interesting fact that it is easy for teams to do. You win the toss, you turn us around. Why don't teams do it more is a really good question. I don't know.
It's a fantastic.
You shouldn't be saying that, dude.
I know.
I'm sure Premier League, managers and captains have the intel on this, so I'm sure I'm not giving away any secrets there. But
keep it quiet, Alex. Keep it quiet, man.
Okay, very good. All right, guys, let's start our discussion with the match.
If Pep Guardiola does that on the last day of the season, Alex, we know who to blame.
It's all on me. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I'm gonna blame Alex if he does that. I'm gonna blame Alex. I agree with you, Kamal. We'll just blame Alex on that. All right, let's get to it. Judge, I'm gonna go to you to start our discussion on the first half. And the way that I want to do this, I just want to get your overall thoughts on the first half. And what's interesting here is that I was talking to Tony. I keep referencing this several times, and the two things he wanted to see that I have to say we saw were he wanted to see intensity, this is from Fulham, and effort. We saw loads of that, especially in the first half. And I thought it reminded me, Judge, of how we played against Liverpool, except we did not score the same amount of goals. I think that kind of might have been a huge difference in this match, is that I said this to Tony, if we went in the half, and we'll talk about your thoughts at halftime, we were up 2-0 at the half. I think it's a completely different match. But Suhail, I want to get your thoughts on how Fulham played in this first half, because it was, I thought, tremendous.
They were, and first 5 or 6 minutes, it was, I think they were camped in the Chelsea half, and I thought, oh, this is going to be very good. Ironically, the goal sort of came slightly against the run of play. It's when we started to counter, and we were sort of like pressing. There was a lot of pressing going on, particularly with Pereira. We countered very, very well, and that's what happened. I think Sessegnon won the ball on the wing. I can't remember who dispossessed. Yeah, he then took it down, and then it was a great finish by Iwobi. And I thought, this is deserved. Not that Chelsea haven't had their chances, because I think they'd had more shots on target, but they've just been directly at Leno. That was a great goal, and I thought all we have to do now is just play the same way for the rest of the game, and we'll catch them again on the break. So the first half, I was very, very impressed with. One thing I didn't like, and I'll just mention it now.
Go ahead.
Anthony Robinson, he's got great speed, and he gets down the byline really well. I don't recall a single cross that went anywhere to anyone. I don't recall. And I remember, I think, I had to close the door really, because I swore a few times. I don't like my kids hearing it. It's just, I remember saying another effing one when it just went, he crossed the ball and went straight to a Chelsea defender. Like, it was terrible, but we played very well first half. I think we deserved to be ahead, and I think we had the edge. And Chelsea were a little bit nervous about, when they would lose the ball, they would scamper back. So we were decent first half, no doubt about that.
Okay, and that's a great way to put decent. I said I thought we were tremendous, but the one thing that I want to go to you, Alex, to basically just counter myself here. If we were so tremendous, right? We only scored one goal and we only got one shot on target, so it couldn't have been tremendous. It was good. It was intense. Maybe I just enjoyed the intensity and the feel that they were going to take this from Chelsea. So what did you make of the first half? I'm kind of tracking back on my comment, because if you look at it, it could have been more, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, so I completely agree about the intensity. That was the point. I felt it was a tremendous first half, and I felt that way because right from the start, we were at it. There were fire in the bellies. We scored after a couple of minutes, disallowed, of course, but we had the ball in the net. We were going at them. Pereira left one on Colwell really early on, which I thought was, it just set the tone, really, to say to Chelsea, we want this more than you today. Sessegnon's winning back of the ball against Reece James when we scored was a great example of that again. So I just felt we played with much more intensity than Chelsea. And yeah, of course, it would be nice to score a second goal. But I was sat there thinking, we're comfortable here. Chelsea are offering nothing. They did have a few shots on target, but they were long-range efforts, as Suhail said, just straight at the keeper. No real threat from Chelsea, I didn't feel at all. Felt very, very comfortable, and just felt like our players were showing that they wanted it more in that first half. They played with confidence, determination, and got the goal. And I was like, yep, happy days. This is set up very, very nicely. So I would go between the two. It was somewhere between good and tremendous. It was a really good first half.
Okay, very good. All right, over to you, Kamal. I'm actually going to give you honors of sharing your thoughts on the goal from Iwobi. And your brother already brought this up, but it really starts with Ryan Sessegnon. And honestly, I thought Ryan Sessegnon played very well. And I think him coming off, maybe that was an issue as well. I don't know, but I think that Sessegnon overall, the best way I can describe Sessegnon, and I said this on the last show, is that it's not that he is this speedy winger. It's that he is this intelligent player that makes the right pass, makes the right decision, finds his teammates, and is tenacious. And that's what this is about. This is about winning the ball from Reece James and setting up Iwobi for the goal. So what was your reaction when you saw this go in the back of the net?
Well, first, just about Sass, I say that he's giving Traore a run for his money. He's getting really buff, you know? He's getting big, buff. People don't want to mess with him. He looks literally like twice the size as he was like at the beginning of the season. He's getting big. I just thought, I mean, the way that goal happened, I thought that was going to be the rest of the game because was Reece James supposed to be their best player, one of the very best players. Literally, I mean, had the ball walked off him, and he was completely befuddled by what had happened. And you know, when we saw, you know, there's a big heart about this. When we saw Alex go in and literally strike the ball at such venom and speed, I thought, hey, my favorite pet battle with Alex is the direct football is coming to play. I do believe that there's a thing about this match which nobody's picked up on, but I can talk to you about it in a second.
Go ahead.
I'll talk again. I'll talk about that. Every week I yap on about the tiki-taka.
You do.
The vomit-wrenching tiki-taka that I see all the time, that like is a leftover from the Parker days. Well, I noticed the formation in this match, and when Sancho came on, I think I turned to Alex, he was completely unmarked because we were all playing through the centre.
That's right.
And it looked to me like Fulham were trying to play direct. And by the end of the match, I said, oh my God, I wish we'd stuck to tiki-taka. But you can never win as a Fulham fan.
No, you can't. You can't, my friend. All right, so let's now talk about what we were all thinking at halftime. And I'll just share my thoughts on what I was thinking. Judge, I'll go to you first. I was thinking just the same what we saw in the first half. My only issue, and I thought about this at the time, how long could they keep up this pace? How long could they keep up this this tenacity, this fire that they were playing with? Because there's only so much that you can play with that kind of intensity. I've seen this from other teams that they basically burn out. And I think we saw some of that. So that was a little bit of my concern at halftime. I was happy, but I was also thinking this. I had a feeling that Maresca would make changes, but I thought to myself that he doesn't really make drastic changes. Well, his changes ended up really changing the game. But what were you thinking about at halftime?
Well, the same as you. I thought all you have to do is just keep playing the same way. We were actually playing quite direct, but so were Chelsea. Lots of long balls.
That's right.
Chelsea. And but all I thought was the defense looks pretty firm. And the funny thing is, the first half, their heads were beginning to drop. I don't know if you recall, like there was one chance at the edge of the area, Pedro Neto completely fluffed it. He had a open chance on goal. He fluffed it. And then there was another one where Cole Palmer, I thought he was about to cross the ball over to Nicholas Jackson, and he took a shot that went, well, maybe Kamal and Alex caught it. I don't know. It was that bad. So I thought, oh, their heads are beginning. You can see him walking away frustrated. So I thought all we have to do is just same thing, keep the counterattack going, and they'll be fine. And I agree with you. Jadon Sancho, to me, changed the impetus, because he began to be much more threatening.
That's right.
Kenny Tete was handling him, but you could sense it. You could sense the waves of the Chelsea attack coming. So at halftime, I thought no problem, and got a sober awakening, a very rude awakening in the second half.
Right, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm glad that you brought up Sancho, because him and Gusto changed the match when they came on. And then we'll talk about what Marco decided to do, and it just simply didn't work. But we'll get there. Alex, what were you thinking at a halftime? Did you think that it would continue? Because I'm not going to lie, I thought it would, but I was a little bit concerned that, as I said to the judge, that can they keep this up? Can they keep this pace up, the intensity? Because it had to have done a number on them. And listen, there are several players that I think it did a number on. We just mentioned, I think it affected Kenny Tete. I definitely think It affected Raul Jimenez, Sessegnon. I think the only player, this is going to sound crazy, that I don't think it affected was Pereira, because Pereira seemed to be going all game long. I don't know where he got that, but he was all intensive for the majority of the game. But what were you thinking at halftime?
I mean, yeah, you never know, right? I mean, I was mainly very comfortable just because Chelsea, like Sahel said, they seemed to drop their heads. They didn't seem very creative. There's a lot of players in that team at the moment playing without confidence. Palmer they're very reliant on him. The other players are, and he just isn't really at it at the moment. So I was pretty confident. I mean, what threw me was and I don't think we can blame this on fatigue personally.
Okay.
Because I think it was more about attitude. It was attitude on the ball. I personally don't think that those guys, Gusto and Sancho, changed the game either. Sancho was direct and they kept finding him. But I thought Tete controlled him really well. I wasn't particularly worried about him on the day.
Okay.
None of the goals came through him. I thought Tete handled him very well. And Gusto, that's a relief to see Reece James go off, right? Because he's a good player who had something to make up for. So I was like, oh, happy days, they've taken Reece James off. So I was very, very confident.
Okay.
But until I started to see the way Fulham played, and it was the way Fulham were playing on the ball. There were two things that were happening in that second half that really kind of had me worried. One was total failure to keep the ball, play ticky-tacky in Kamal's
there we go.
version. We couldn't do it, and for some reason we kept on playing out to the left even when the space was on the right. It always started with Leno to Bassi looking for Robinson. Robertson was having a poor game, and we just played ourselves into holes down that left-hand corner over and over and over again. There was space down the right. We were much more productive down the right. Couldn't understand why we were using that avenue. But the other thing was, like, I don't know if you saw this on the TV as much, but in the ground, it felt when the ball goes out of play, the Fulham players were walking and the Chelsea players were running into position. I kept on saying to Kamal, shape. They had to get their shape back, and they just weren't doing it. So it was the intensity off the ball. And, maybe you can say that's fatigue, but for me, it wasn't fatigue. It was this mental thing that they went into that second half thinking, well, let's just get through it. Let's just get through the game instead of let's doing what we did in the first half. And that was a big issue.
Wow, that's interesting. Over to you, Kamal. What are your thoughts on that and your thoughts at halftime?
I just want to say a big thanks to Alex. Because of Alex yesterday, I got 2 tickets to bring my missus and my son, who doesn't get a chance to see many games. And he goes to school with a lot of Chelsea fans. So that was a great day for us yesterday. At halftime, sorry, Ross, I'll get back.
Not so good for him today. So,
so 2 things I want to say is, first, I listened to your immediate reaction show yesterday.
Yeah,
I've got to applaud you for that, because what you did in that show was say, look, we can pick Fulham apart. There's a lot of people coming on saying Fulham did this, Fulham did that, but people aren't talking about what actually Chelsea presented in the match.
Right.
We have to kind of sometimes. It's the Fulham curse. When Fulham play, people always talk about the other team and they never talk about Fulham. And we don't want to fall into the same trap.
Right, and that's why I do that, Kamal. And I want to also say on this show, I want to give credit to Chelsea, because that's why I just said sometimes you just get beat and sometimes you just have to accept it. We can talk about what Fulham did wrong, but you also have to acknowledge what Chelsea did right, even though it's painful.
So good luck. Well done, Paul and Callum. But I'm not going to smile at you next time I see you guys. But the other thing at halftime, one thing I realised was 2 things. Is that a lot of Fulham's crosses were, the passing game was sometimes off. They weren't getting there. And Jedi was, Sahel said is right. I don't know. I think Jedi really was aiming for the stars. I think it was, Return of the Jedi. It was literally for the stars. And also, the other thing is that we have to be very, we have to remind ourselves, is that Fulham has one of the oldest teams in the Premiership, and Chelsea has one of the youngest teams in the Premiership, and their legs were just, they were shooting constantly at Leno, and Leno just had easy pickups. They were shooting at the goalkeeper, but they kept shooting.
That's right.
They kept taking risks, and they just had energy, where it wasn't that we didn't have energy, but we were trying to keep up for them. And I thought our pressing game, particularly in the second half, disappeared.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point there, Kamal. So let's transition. Let's talk about the second half. All right. So let's. Unfortunately, it's a little painful, but let's get to it. And Judge, I just want to go to you first. Let's look at it this way. Okay. So from the get-go, well, obviously you have the substitutions, and they changed how they were going to play. And the announcers I was listening to, I don't know if you have the same announcing team, basically said that Reece James was playing a certain way, and they were changing things up now that he was gone, and it basically Sancho was going to be your danger player, and that turned out to be true. But I want to talk to you about those opening stages before we talk about what happened with the substitutions.
Right.
I could tell right off the bat that things had changed. The substitutions, whether we want to say that they made a massive difference, the Chelsea players believed it did because they were now playing with that intensity. So what did you make of, say, the first 10 to 15 minutes?
I think I agree with Kamal, right, on one thing, that what I noticed was, and we're always like this. We're always, we're very reluctant to take, snapshots, etc. We're always like, we get the ball in the pen, and we'll talk about their goal shortly. But all I would say is, in referring to that, can you imagine one of our players doing that? Like the ball gets past to him. I say past him because Robinson kicked the ball off the toe off another player, and it sort of came to George, and he just immediately snapshot at it. Now, do you imagine one of the Fulham players? They probably would have first touch, tried to move it side to side, tried to move it left and right, see who was available. We weren't doing that. And then what I noticed in the first 15 minutes was how sloppy our passing had become. It was like we were giving the ball away constantly, trying to intercept. Even when we won the ball back, we would then give it back to Chelsea. And that you could see the danger signs were coming. And that's when I was thinking, Jimenez looks knackered. He's running around and he looks really cream crackered. It's the time to just get someone else, whether it's Vinicius, whether it's anyone else, just get someone who can actually give Chelsea something to think about. And that was my first move. I thought, oh, you know what, Marco, you need to move. You need to get the bench moving quickly.
Okay, so let's get to there. All right, so Alex, I'll go to you. I want to talk about the substitutions. So the one that Tony talked about a great deal, I want to get your thoughts on, was taking off Lukic and bringing on Kearney.
Yeah.
Now, second guessing is saying should have brought on Harrison Reed. But he said, watching it from the Hammy, and like you guys did, that changed the game. That Lukic was the one that really stopped Cole Palmer from playing. Then all of a sudden, Cole Palmer's now playing. This is Tony's words. So I want to get your thoughts on that. And that substitution was the one that really hurt Fulham. That it was just, I think I understand what Marco's intent was to get control back, but maybe we needed a different type of midfielder at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think not only was so I can understand bringing on Kearney because we couldn't keep the ball. So I guess that's the thinking. It's like, why the hell can't we keep the ball? Let's get Kearney on there, tidy things up, get hold of the ball. But also, there was a solidity to the side. Like, let's not forget, despite our sloppiness on the ball, and the reason we Chelsea were on top was not. I don't think it's because they played that well. I think it's because we just kept giving the ball to them. so we were doing it again and again and again. But I still didn't feel under threat just because Tete looked solid, Lukic and Berger was solid. Bassi got a bit dodgy off the ball, on the ball in the second half. He was brilliant in the first half, but he got dodgy on the ball. But again, solid. Anderson was solid. I wasn't worried, even though we were giving the ball to them. I really didn't feel like Chelsea are creating anything here. So I felt, yes, it was completely the wrong substitution. Not so much because it didn't end up resolving the keeping the ball issue. It didn't help at all. But also because we just lost that solidity. And what didn't make any sense about it is the timing as well. Sessegnon had got injured. It really felt like Sessegnon needed to go off at that point. He looked like his race was run. Yeah. I thought we needed to get Wilson on when Lukic went off. We waited another 5 minutes for that to happen. Sessegnon was off the pitch for about 2 minutes. I couldn't understand what was going on there. We made the substitution while Sessegnon was still injured. He sat on the sidelines for ages. So it was just a crazy thing to do. I don't understand it. We gave away, and the same with subbing Tete. We gave away the solidity of our team, which we were dependent on, given that we weren't able to keep the ball. made no sense to me at all. I can't understand those substitutions. I can usually, Kamal will vouch for me. Usually I'll say, this is what we should do. And 2 minutes later, Marco does it. And I've got my thinking very aligned with him. But on this occasion, he's trying to deny it. But on this occasion, I couldn't understand the decisions that were getting made. I really couldn't. And I felt like it cost us. The substitutions cost us.
Okay. And listen, Ben Lawrence actually brings up something that I want to come right back to, because Tony said this, and I think this is not a crazy idea, but something that we haven't seen. He says Vinicius coming on was a joke. He hasn't played all season. I get that point of it. Tony was suggesting Traore comes on. Why not play Traore up front?
Absolutely, because also it gives you an opportunity to just try and ping longer balls. We were
Exactly.
trying to play football but couldn't. So do something different, because we were giving Chelsea the ball on the halfway line or in our half over and over again. Ping the ball over the top. Let Traore go and chase it. Maybe sneak something. Maybe we get a throw. Worst case, they're starting from their own area and we can set up. And I would definitely have done that rather than bringing on Vinicius. Again, that substitution didn't make any sense to me. I agree with Ben. He hasn't played all season. Jimenez might have been knackered, but at least he's good, So,
right.
I don't know.
No, listen, I certainly understand that. Kamal, I want to go to you. We're not going to talk about the goals. I'm sorry I'm giving you the first one, but I'm going to give your brother the second one, which is probably more painful. So I'm going to you. So let's talk about the goal from this young player,
George.
I'm going to say right now, both of these goals are preventable. Okay. What we were talking about before earlier tonight was that for whatever reason, Fulham cannot have a defensive performance for 90 plus minutes. Now, we could talk about the substitutions actually might be playing a factor in some of these situations for goals. But I want to get your thoughts on George's goal, a young kid. Oh, by the way, Fulham have some young players that aren't playing. So let's keep that in mind. You have Josh King and Godot, and there's some young players. But for whatever reason, Chelsea gets a chance to play young players that have an impact, and this player has an impact. What did you make of this goal? I think it was completely preventable.
I thought, let's just remember, I think George was a chap who scored in the Conference League on Thursday, wasn't he? And he's very young. He's just a kid. He's like 19 years old. Explosion like a youth. Do want to point out, because I watched that goal a few times, I was wondering how it could have maybe been prevented. And I think it slipped through Jedi's grasp. He kind of went for it, and then it kind of went past him. And when the goal went in, he just, put his hands up in the air. And, it kind of, there is a trouble with it. There is a bit of chess mate. There's a chess strategy. Marco's not winning.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't think, like, for example, I thought Wilson, bringing on Wilson, like in the 80th minute, it's just a waste of time. He should have been brought on much earlier. And taking off Lukic, who's like a defensive stalwart, is just madness. And
so, Kamal, let me ask you, did you notice any fitness issue with Lukic? Was he struggling at all? Because someone pointed that out to me.
I did notice that Sessegnon was getting very tired.
Okay.
I didn't think... the thing about Lukic, he kind of mutes the game. He stands there. And so we were talking, me and Alex were talking about Berger. And there was one point, Berger just stood in front of him. I don't know who it was. I think maybe it was Jackson or Cassier. And literally, he just kept standing in front of them 3 times. And I said to Alex, that man is a wall, And sometimes he doesn't have to do anything. He's just good at muting and passing the ball. Lukic is he's kind of the same thing, but like a jackhammer version of it. He just comes to life. And for me, the whole thing about Lukic is that, I love Muniz, I love all of the, great performances, but Lukic is the player of our season. And I don't think, I find it really odd that he was getting, substituted. I didn't get it. And I also noticed that, when Jedi's response to George's goal kind of reflected maybe a mentality that was going around the pitch with the Fulham players. Hey, we're losing a hold of this. We're losing a grip. And you don't normally see, Jedi's normally kind of a little bit ice cool. He's probably worried because it took his ultimate valuation down a couple of million. Who knows? But
Okay.
Alex is going to be worried about that. Alex is one of Alex's top men.
I know. All right. I'm going to go over to the judge, to Sahel. Okay, Sahel, let's talk about this. And what's interesting about this goal, and I'm glad that your brother brought this up, the mentality of the Fulham players. Was it affected by the first goal? Were they not mentally where they needed to be as that second half went on? What are your thoughts on that before we talk about the goal?
No, I first of all, I don't agree with Kamal on Robinson's reaction. I think Robinson's reaction was he was the one who, if you recall, he was the one who kicked the ball. And then it went. It was like a pass to George, but he was trying to take it off another player, and that's why I think it was a frustration thing that all of a sudden, oh God, look what did I do? But I don't think it was. I think there was a feeling of, look, it's 1-1. Let's just get to the end now. That's what was going through the Fulham player's mind. And then the second goal, you can see how it comes around, because I think they spin round Pereira first of all, then they pass it off to the wing, and Kearney, and this is the big thing about the Lukic substitution. Yeah, it's Kearney who should be intercepting that ball, because when the ball is passed to Neto, and don't get me wrong, amazing finish. I mean, we'd love a Fulham player to score a goal like that. It's Kearney who should be intercepting. And if you watch the replays, he sort of half jogs back to try and stop the interception, sticks his leg out lazily, and it goes to Neto. Now, no, I never thought Neto was going to do that. I thought Neto was going to touch it, and he just walloped it past Leno. And, so you can't get around that. I think it was just this, Fulham switched off. They just thought, you know what, this is going to be 1-1. Let's just get to the end. And Chelsea just punished us for it. That's what it was. And again, it just echoed this idea of Lukic coming off, who I thought was one of our best players. I actually texted a friend in England saying that our best two players are in the first half were Lukic and Cess.
Right, exactly.
And they both came off different reasons. But I don't think I get what he was trying to do, but Lukic was not the player to withdraw. If you wanted to get control and bring Kenny on, take someone else off, but not him. And Traore was, I'll just add this. I know it's might not. He was awful when he came on.
Yeah, he was not good. Yeah. Well, going right back to you, Judge, because this is something that Tony and I talked about earlier. We talked about the chess match, and we were just talking about it, winning the coaching battle. And Marco tends to win a lot of these. And I didn't see him losing it to Maresca, but he lost it to Maresca.
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely lost it. He definitely waited too long to make the subs. And if he was going to go into a defensive mode, this is why I brought up Diop earlier, because I was looking on the bench and thinking, this would be ideal for, you're going to get defensive, bring on Diop, go to 5 at the back, and then see how Chelsea cope with that. And of course, Diop's not on the bench. And then he brings on the midfielders. He takes off our best midfielder. Cess had to come off because he was injured, but it just, and you've already commented on the Vinicius substitution, but just in his partial defense, he did actually make a nuisance of himself with the Chelsea defenders. He's not very good.
Did. Yeah, he did, but it wasn't very good.
No,
he did. No. He did. But you know what? Like I said, that's what's frustrating about this, because there's nothing that we can really do about injuries, right? The unfortunate situation with Rodrigo Muniz. Judge, I'm just going to say this right now, and you can't go back in time. You can't have Rodrigo Muniz being part of this game, except that if he is part of this game, I think it's a different game. And that just shows how much Muniz has improved as a player, because they are going direct. And I think if he's the one instead of Raul, especially in the second half, I think things are different.
Yeah, can I just say one more thing? When Tosin came on, my fantasy move would have been, I thought, wouldn't it be great if Vinicius nutmegged him and scored? That was what I was dreaming of, but of course that never happened, did it? Okay. It never does. But, anyway, there you are. Those were my thoughts on that.
Okay. No,
Russ, can I just bring on? There's Benjamin's just made a wonderful comment on Facebook.
Yep.
And he said, Tete had Neto in the first half and Sancho in the second half in the pocket. And then Berg and Lukic had Palmer and Enzo.
Yeah.
And then we make poor substitutions, lose the midfield, and it goes wrong. I thought that was very good.
Yeah.
That's no. It's a valid point. I'm glad that Ben is sharing this. Has been very helpful on both of my shows. So thank you, Ben, for your comments, because it really does help add something to our show. So thank you very much.
I totally agree with what the analysis there that he's just put on screen. Totally agree with that. Those should have been the subs, and we should have gone to 5 in the back before for the last 10, 15 minutes. So.
Okay. Excellent stuff, guys. All right. Let's end this episode by talking about takeaways. And this might be painful because now we can talk about what's next, right? What's next for Fulham? So let's go to takeaways. Alex, I'm going to go to you. We have 5 matches left. Okay. This is the way I'm looking at it. What can they do? Because Europe is not gone, but it is flickering. What are your takeaways from this match?
Yeah, I mean, 8th is now absolutely the best we can hope for, so I was still having fancies. If we got the 3 points against Chelsea, there's only 3 points in it. We could catch Chelsea. Now it's 8th to 11th, basically, we're battling for. Yep. I'm deeply concerned about the next game. Southampton away should on paper be really easy, but we're already one of the teams that gifted them one of their 11 points this season. They're also coming off the back of a last-minute equaliser, which makes them not the worst team in Premier League history, but they also still have something to play for because they're still currently the equal worst team in Premier League history. So I'm not confident, and that's tragic. All season long, when we've had a dip, a lull, a misstep, we've followed it up with something positive. The flip side is we've rarely put together a bunch of wins.
No, right.
But this was a absolutely punishing result because obviously we'd lost against Bournemouth. We needed to make up for it. We lost again. And I don't know. I mean, I'm feeling, I'm usually the upbeat one going, nah, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like on the day I felt that's the end of our season. I thought we were done. And, and I'm hoping we got the next 2 games, Southampton away, Everton at home. They're both games we should win. If we do, we'll be back on track for 8th, probably. Right. But even then, it's going to be a tough finish to the season. The last few games are hard. So I don't know. We've just got to keep going till the end, hope for the best. But for the first time in a long time, I'm not feeling positive as a result of that last 10 minutes of that game.
That's not good. That's not. I want a positive Alex. That's not good. Okay. Judge, what are you taking out of this match?
I'm in the same boat as Alex. I'm going to join the depression club and just say that I think Europe is gone. What we should be going for is record points total. We could definitely do that with 2 wins. We've got Southampton and Everton. We've got Villa in between the Southampton and Everton game, and that is going to be a real. I mean, I don't see us getting anything from that. Then we got Brentford at the G-Tech, and again, that's going to be a poison one. And then, of course, final day City. So you know what? If we can get 2 wins, Southampton, Everton, we can actually say we've had a great season, did well in the FA Cup, and we broke our points total. And we look importantly to next season to try and make sure we get the right structure and players, and most of all, keep Marco for next season.
Totally agree with all of that. Kamal, I'm going to give you the final word on the show.
Final word? No, you're going to have the final word, Russ, not me.
All right.
So first, just to apologise to Alex, because Alex generally, every time he makes a prediction for the subs, he's always right. Yeah, but he's always tracking the byline. I see, he's taking his top. Oh, he's getting ready, but he's always right. He gets it right. And it's good to have my brother on the show because he makes a lot of rules. He made, as you call him, judge. The judge makes a lot of astute points very quickly and clearly, which I really appreciate. For me, I'm going to come off my habitual sitting off the fence, and I'm going to join the Goldman Club, and I'm going to say every single one of those matches is winnable. Every single one.
Wow. My positivity has rubbed off on you. I love it.
It's only, look, we've got Southampton is winnable. They beat us at home, but
0-0.
True.
0-0. And then Villa, always interesting battles, and they kind of really focused on a European.
That's right.
Place.
That's right.
Everton at home. Like a few years ago, I remember seeing Fulham playing Everton at my brother's in Toronto, And that was like an unnerving time, but it's kind of more of a walk in the park now for me, I believe.
Okay.
And Brentford, when the crunch always comes, Brentford always falls. I know the bees will hate us saying that. And then City, what a way to see off the summer.
Yeah. Okay, so I have turned Kamal into a Russ Goldman positivity person. I love it. That makes me feel good to end the show because I'm not giving up on the season, guys. I know that Europe is, like I said, flickering, but there are 5 matches to go. And every time I've counted these players out, they've proven me wrong. So I'm not going to count them out. I'm not going to give up until the very end. But if they do, Alex, capitulate and it goes downhill from there, then we have something to talk about because there's no reason why they shouldn't beat this points total and be in the conversation for Europe. They're difficult matches. But as Kamal astutely said, they're all winnable, including Man City at home. So I'm going to say that right now. Okay, listen, great show, guys. I've really enjoyed it. First, Alex, thank you as always for joining me tonight.
No worries. Thanks, Russ. Always a pleasure.
Okay, Kamal, it's always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Sorry, I just muted myself. Always
okay. Okay. Sometimes that's probably good, but not this time. Okay. And Sahel, I'm going to call Sahel the judge. Can I call you the judge? Is that okay?
You can call me the judge. Don't worry. But all I can say is honor to be on here. One of the very best podcasts about Fulham on YouTube. And I will say I love listening. I'm a poor substitute for Matt. But your team, the View from the Hammy End, is an amazing podcast. You get so many interesting views and viewpoints, I should say. And I'm doing my best to try and spread the word on this side of the Atlantic, Ross.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad that you said that. And it'll be good to get Matt back. But one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, I wanted to get a group of friends together who watch the match together and might have different opinions on what they see. And that's what's great about doing the show. View from the Hammy End. It's been wonderful so far, and may it continue for a long time because I've enjoyed it. Anyways, I am going to wrap up this show. For Alex, Kamal, and Sahel, I'm Russ Coleman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.